Hello, today we're going to talk about slope-intercept form, lesson 1. Alright, slope-intercept form is written as y equals mx plus b. It's a bunch of fancy letters. You're probably used to seeing x and y. X and y are points. So points on the linear function, or the linear model that you have here, whatever you want to call it. I'm going to call it equation, or I'm going to call it function, because I like that word better. So it's just points. If you look on a graph, there's an x and y point. So on a graph, whenever you graph your in slope-intercept form, you get a line, a straight line. So x and y are those points. Any point that you can find on that line is x and y. Your m is what is called your slope. It's your rate of change. It's how fast the line goes up or down. And the last one is the y-intercept. The y-intercept is found where your line crosses the y-axis. So if that's if it crosses right there, then your y-intercept would be -3. It's a very simple concept, the y-intercept, but people tend to mess it up because they'll look at the x-axis, or they just don't understand what it means, where the line intercepts it. All right, for our first example, I'm going to take this and I'm going to put it into slope-intercept form. All right, to be able to find the slope and the y-intercept, I have to have it in this form. This is not that form. So if I want to say, what is the slope and y-intercept here? All right, I can't find it through this. I have to switch it to that, which is a pretty simple process. I just move everything away from the y. There you go. As long as you're good with the equations, that is very simple. I divided make sure you don't leave a negative with it. I divided it by -1 to get rid of the negative in front of it, which means I divide both of these by -1, and I just switch their signs. So now I can tell you that the slope here is this number right here, which is always in front of the x. Now if there's nothing there, if there's no x, it just says y equals 5 or something like that, that means your slope was 0. And your y-intercept, or your b, whatever you want to call it, is 8. All right, example 2 and 3 we're actually going to do together. So for 2, all I want to know for both of these is what is the slope and what is the y-intercept. So this is just a task to develop if you know where to find the slope and the y-intercept in the slope-intercept form. So my slope here is -1/3 because it's the number in front of the x. It's a coefficient of the x. My y-intercept is -7. Remember, this is graphing a linear function, or a linear, it's not technically a function form. But this is what we're dealing with here, slope-intercept form. Slope is the number in front of the x, whatever number's back there is your y-intercept. So my slope here is -3, and my y-intercept here is 1/2. Oops. And it really is that simple. All right, we're going to do the next two together also. So example 4 and example 5. In these examples, I want to know what the slope-intercept form is of both of these. So to get the slope-intercept form, all I basically have to do is isolate the y. I want to get the y all alone with nothing but a coefficient of 1 in front of it. So just simple moving of everything. I'm going to move what's furthest away first. And we did this all earlier in the year, so it shouldn't be that difficult for you now. And there you go. It's that simple. You move what's furthest away from the y away first. It's usually a constant. In this case, it's this variable. And then you get rid of the coefficient in front. So your slope here is 1/3. Your y-intercept is -3. So then I come over here. What's the furthest thing away from my y on that side? Is the 4x. Since I'm subtracting 4x, I have to add 4x to both sides. So y 4x plus 12. My slope is 4. My y-intercept is 12. And there you go. The hardest thing here is being able to simplify it correctly. And that just takes what we learned at the very beginning of the year with solving equations, multi-step equations, equations with variables on both sides, stuff like that. It brings it back here to be able to do this. All right, for our last example, we'll be getting the slope-intercept form off a graph. So I need to find the slope and the y-intercept. That's the two things I need. All right, the y-intercept is always easier on a graph. It should always be the first thing you look for in this type of situation when you're trying to match an equation up with a graph. Always look at the y-intercept first. So where does this line right here cross the y-axis? That's all you have to ask yourself. So this line crosses at 0. So my y-intercept is 0. Now the slope is a little bit more difficult. We're going to do rise over run. You can do it either way. Since you have two known points, you can do the slope formula too, but I'm just going to do rise over run. So I'm going to start at this point right here, and I'm just going to rise up until I meet this point right here. So 1, 2, 3, and 4. So now I'm directly across from it. So this right here is 4. All I'm doing is basically making a right triangle. And now I need to meet it. 1, 2, 2. So I rose up 4, and I ran over 2, simplified down to 2. So my equation is y equals 2x plus 0. That's my slope-intercept form for this line. For the slope, just always make sure you make a right triangle when you're doing rise over run. You should be all right. I know mine's a little bit off because of my graph. This has been slope-intercept form lesson 1. Hope it helped and good luck.